Hello, my little boom booms. It's Leonie. I've got a special podcast episode for you today all about parenting. Hello. I do want to give you a heads up though. It is not the usual sound quality. I made this while I was on the move. And so it's like you're sitting in the car having a yak with me and we're talking shit and it's great and it's fun, but it's nowhere near as nice sounding as it usually is. Anyway, that's a heads up. Hope you enjoy it anyway. Lots of love. Leonie Dawson refuses to be categorised. And so, thus for today, Leonie Dawson is speaking to herself in third person, about herself in third person, and talking to herself in third person. Leonie, what do you like? I like everything. Hooray! And we're going to talk about parenting today. Hey-oh! So I wanted to talk about parenting because of a little thing that happened this morning. So my kids are finally back to school after they've been home for 4 months. We kept them home we pulled them out earlier than the government mandated, and we sent them back later. We're pretty cautious about coronavirus. I likely had swine flu in about 2016. It went for about 6 months. It was fucking horrific. So I don't want bar of this illness. And somebody asked me if I was going to get vaccinated, and I was like, fuck yeah, like I cannot wait to jab a needle inside me to stop to like prevent catching bat flu. Why is it that we called it swine flu and we're not calling this one bat flu? Like, I think we've really missed a good branding exercise, because it's kind of humorous when I say swine flu, right? Like, you go, swine flu. I mean, it was horrific, but when the doctor said to me, look, it was likely swine flu, that's like the best indicator of where we're heading, and I was like, swine flu. So, I mean, at least you got a little bit of humor in the subject. Anyway, I'm rabbiting on. So my kids went back to school this week, and today's their third day. And this morning, my youngest was just out of sorts and had some tears, was a little bit cross, didn't like her jumper, didn't like her t-shirt, was convinced that she wasn't feeling very well, wanted to stay home. And I could see she was just kind of working her way out. And I knew, like, her school is great and she has a phenomenal time when she's there. And I know that sometimes she just has, like, a little bit of anxiety about actually going there. It's totally a new thing for her. She only started school this year. She's homeschooled all the way up to this point. And she's only had, like, basically 5 or 6 weeks of school this year before homeschooling. So it's a really, really brand new experience for her. And as soon as she started like showing that she was feeling a lot of feelings about it, I went straight into connected parenting mode. And so what that meant was she couldn't, really do much for herself. And so I helped her to get dressed. I helped her to put clothes on. Everything was a bit overwhelming for her. And here's the thing, like, on some point I think there's like a part of our parent brain that goes, she's, this age, she should be able to do this herself, bruh. But it just doesn't help the situation when they're in that moment, when their brain's actually switched off, when their nervous system's in overdrive. They're actually not listening, and they're not logical, rational beings. And so what we need to do instead is to kind of get down to their level and help them bring their nervous system back online using our own nervous system. So I'll talk a bit about that today. I've learned these kinds of techniques from a bunch of people. I'll let you know who they are at the end of this. And this is all backed up in psychological like research and antenatal and postnatal development, all that kind of stuff. It's fascinating, and it also means really big things, because here's the thing, once I'd gotten my kid back online again and helped their nervous system recalibrate, she was groovy, she was happy, she didn't have a meltdown. it was pretty smooth sailing to actually get her into school, and it was actually a beautiful connection time as well. So I was helping her with like the tasks that she was finding really difficult. I was making sure that I was giving her long, strong cuddles that go for at least 20 seconds. I was helping her by taking deep breaths myself. She was starting to breathe deeper as well. I wasn't saying to her, you shouldn't feel like that, or that's just silly. Like, I wasn't dismissive of her emotions. And instead I was saying, oh, of course you feel like that. And are you feeling like this as well? And is it because of that? Oh, of course, that makes so much sense. I'm here for you. I love you. I'm going to help you. And it's really about treating our kids the way that we treat our friends in a lot of ways. So for me, when one of my mates comes to me and goes, I'm going through this really big thing right now, like, I'm like, stop, drop, and empathy, you know, like, oh, love, of course it's what you're feeling, and that is so much to be going through. I completely understand that. That is hard, love. That is really hard. And of course you're feeling those feelings. That's completely normal. And then, like, eventually, like, when they're heard enough, they're like, oh, I'm just not sure what to do. And then I can say things like, did you want to help you create a plan of, like, how to rectify this? Or, you know, let's create a self-care plan for you for the next week to try and get your nervous system back online. Even just like over text, you can do this kind of empathy. And you're not saying to your friend, well, you shouldn't feel like that. That's just silly. Because that doesn't make you feel, that doesn't make them feel understood. And it actually makes them feel their feelings even more. When someone tells you, you shouldn't feel like that, you grip onto that feeling even more. And you're like, well, I'm fucking feeling it. And I think this is the thing, like with kids and with toddlers, and you're like, don't feel that. Don't feel that. Like, I'm fucking feeling that. I'm fucking feeling that. I'm feeling it. I don't know what to do about it. They've got no way to, like, regulate themselves. I mean, even adults have a hard time regulating themselves and once they're wound up. So I don't know why we expect our kids to. Anyway, those are the kinds of things I was doing at home. And then we decided, you know, we're driving to school. My husband was driving. Usually I sit in the front seat and my kids are in the back. And I could tell Beth was still just feeling a bit wobbly and still needed some needed help calibrating. And so I said to her, would you like me to sit beside you in the back of the car and we can hold hands on the way to school? And she was so stoked with that. And we had a really beautiful, lovely time connecting in the back of the seat for the 20 minutes that it took for us to drive to the car, to drive to school. I held her hand. I gave her firm pats on the leg, really just to help her come into her body and feel comforted. And we talked about her feelings. I told her it was understandable, completely understandable. And then I told her all of the reasons and all of the ways that I love her. And she loved it. She wanted to know more and more. And she was like, what else? Do you love the way that I do this? Or do you love the way that I do that? Or I am that? And I said, yes, of course. And it was just beautiful. So by the time I dropped her at school, she was groovy. She was back online again. And here's the thing. If I hadn't kind of stopped and dropped and tended to that situation, that's where they're just going to have absolute fucking freakouts. This is where, like, the power of empathy and connection parenting really comes in. So here's the thing, and this could completely piss you off, but whatever. My kids have never, like, really had tantrums or meltdowns per se, like, even when they're a toddler. In fact, I remember the first time that my eldest kid went into, like, a meltdown, into a tantrum, and I'd been preparing for this situation. I was like, right, I know what to do here. And so we were in Bunnings, which was a warehouse, like a homewares warehouse kind of thing. They're really, really popular here in Australia. And she just got completely overstimulated, and she sat down on the ground and started kind of crying and wailing. And I was like, okay, cool, I know what to do here. And I sat down on the ground next to her, and I gathered her in my arms. Well, I saw if she wanted me to gather her in her arms. I was like, did you want a hug? And she was like, I made sure I was making eye contact, was giving soft, deep voice. And I said to her, oh, my love, of course you're feeling this way. Like, there's so many bright lights, there's people, the floor is not comfortable here. You're really tired, and you're also hungry, and you've just had enough. And, she was like 18 months or so. And even though like her language wasn't at that point, she just got that I was understanding where she was at. Like, she was just fucking over the bullshit. Like, I feel like that in Bunnings sometimes, guys. Like, I really do. I'm just recording this as I drive very slowly to my daughter's school. I'll edit this later. Yeah, I'll definitely edit this later. And also, like, I was protective over my daughter's right to her feelings as well. So while she was kind of having this moment to herself, I was in mama bear mode, and I was comforting her. And I also was like, if anyone dares to glare at me or my child in this situation, or try to tell me to stop it from crying, they're going to get fucking mama beared right now, because it is a really normal part of human development for people to experience sensory overwhelm and to have a meltdown. Like, it is completely normal for a toddler to have big feelings. It's completely normal for any human to have big feelings. And I mean, here's the thing, like, and because I have always, since I've had kids, I've never given a fuck what anyone else thinks about my parenting. Like, I know I'm doing a great job. And I also know that, like, that kind of, like, judgy bullshit isn't helpful. So, like, out of all the things I've done I've done homeschooling, I did extended breastfeeding. I used to breastfeed my toddler. She was like 2.5. I used to breastfeed her up the street, like, of the towns that I lived in. Like, I've never even gotten, like, a shitty, like, look from someone. And I find that hilarious. And I think it might just be like, well, it's either dumb luck or because I am so ready. I'm so ready to, like, just give a big old fucking nope to that kind of behavior. Like, I am doing the right thing by myself and my child, and I am not interested in anybody else's opinion of that. So consequently, I've never actually gone to town on mama bearing anyone, which is amazing. Like, I've always, like, had that energy of, like, did you fucking say a word? Nobody has. Bless. Anyway, I'm not saying you have to, like, do that, like, that kind of extreme. And also, I'm not saying that you have to be a certain way. I wanted to protect my kid's right to have a fucking meltdown if she needed to have a meltdown. And here's the thing, like, as soon as I empathied her, as soon as I was, like, down on her level, giving her, like, close comfort and connection, guess what? The thing is, she stopped. And I mean, here's the thing, right, is if somebody's, like, empathizing with how you're feeling, you don't get more wound up, really. Well, you usually don't anyway. And that's just kind of how it's been with all of my kids now. At the slightest sign that they're starting to lose it, I just empathize, I hug, I hold, give them eye contact. I make sure I slow my breathing down. I make sure I'm feeling calm and connected. and allow them to recalibrate their energy off mine. And consequently, we're a decade in, and I still can't really think of a time where my kids have had like an actual tantrum, an actual meltdown. Except for one point, is that when Beth ended up having her nappies taken off her, she wasn't a willing participant of that, and was really quite cross about that for a number of hours. Bless her. And even like the empathy just did not help. She was like, yeah, I do feel angry. I feel really angry. I am not ready to be nappied, like to be potty trained. Bless. And I think that's also like it's also her personality. She very much knows her own self, and she's not particularly willing to listen to somebody else's perspective of how things might go a little bit differently and different timing, but that's okay. Anyway, so those are some things that you can do when your kid's getting into freak out mode, or your husband, or your best friends. Instead of trying to fix the situation for them, instead of trying to tell them why it's wrong to feel that way, like, have a fucking go of saying, yeah, totally, that is bullshit. Like, oh, this sucks. Agreed. Oh my God, yes. And do it with heart, and just continue to like try and keep your own nervous system chill and calm. And it really fucking helps. It really fucking helps so very much. And it's also just a much easier way to parent. And here's the thing, when I've like had the moments where I haven't done that, and I've just gone, well, just stop it. Just stop behaving like that. I don't like it. Just stop crying. Guess what? Like, it doesn't fucking work, guys. Like, spoiler alert, it doesn't fucking work. And I have to like go back, and it takes heaps longer for me to get it fixed than if I'd just done the right fucking thing at the start and tried to be more empathetic to begin with. I will say, however, like, it can be hard when you are at the end of your nervous system to to be able to help somebody get in alignment with theirs. And so it's really important to find ways to have calm in your life as well. And for me, that means like I need to have really good self-care over myself. I need to have regular time to myself, because that's where I fill up my well again. And I need to like take good care of my nervous system, knowing that my kids are building their nervous system off mine. And that can feel really scary when you're anxious as fuck, because you're like, oh my God, I'm going to infect my fucking kids. But it's not like that. I don't want you to use it as a nervous system, like as a thing to like freak out and make your nervous system even worse. What I'm trying to say is that your kid's nervous system is undeveloped, and so wherever you can kind of lend them your more developed nervous system and your better ways of self-regulating, it really, really makes a massive fucking difference. Does that make sense? So, and that like lines up not just from a psychological point of view, but it also lines up from like a spiritual and energetic level as well. Hira Boga from hiraboga.com has been one of the biggest kind of energy mentors of my life. And she talks about how for the first 7 years, you are helping build your children's chakra system off your chakra system. So when you can keep yourself more regulated, even better. Carrie Conti, Dr. Carrie Conti, I should say, she's got some amazing YouTube videos, highly recommend it. She is a researcher and a psychologist specializing in like early childhood development, and even like babies' brains being developed in the womb and stuff like that. fucking fascinating. And her whole technique of stop, drop, and connect, that's where those words come from. And she's like, just first check in with yourself, get your nervous system back online, and then like stop to check in with yourself, drop down into your kids' world and connect, and empathize with them. And it can do absolute fucking wonders for their nervous system and for how they deal with those big feelings as well. So Carrie Conti is a great person to check out. Hira Boga's beautiful to learn from. Hira doesn't teach necessarily about parenting. She teaches about all things in life. But I really appreciate the impact that Hira's work has had on me. Steve Biddulph has written billions of books, and they've been used millions of times over. He teaches similar philosophies in terms of connected parenting. Patty Whipfler and her hand-in-hand parenting techniques are also hugely useful and hugely powerful, and I'd really recommend her as well. And Magda, I'm going to fuck up her last name, Pashane Pekasenye. Anyway, she wrote AskMoxie.org, and I absolutely fucking love her. I'm not sure if Ask Moxie is still up, but it was the best parenting website that I'd ever been to. And her books, she's got a great book as well, and I just love her, and she kind of incorporates this kind of work into her pragmatic parenting philosophies. So I guess that's where we're at with that. I got my kids' report card yesterday, which was hilarious because they've homeschooled, and so I didn't really give a fuck. And the thing that I'm most interested in is teachers' evaluations of their kind of personal development. And here's the thing, like, I believe I know more about my own kids than teachers do, but I'm always interested in other people's perspectives. Like, I'm going to trust my experience of my kid before I trust anybody else's. But it's always useful to get a teacher's perspective, or, you know, an outsider's perspective on where they're seeing your kids' strengths are. And the thing on the report card said, you know, this is a kid that has really high emotional intelligence, is very, very emotionally astute, very compassionate and empathetic, has, you know, really great empathetic communication skills with other kids. And I thought, fuck yeah, that's where I feel like I've nailed it, you know, like everything else, like there's you know, things to strengthen, but if we can get that personal stuff right, then everything else is a doddle, you know. She's a happy kid who loves to learn, and I've made choices in terms of homeschooling and even how we did quarantine schooling as well, because we didn't follow school curriculum during that time. We were more into unschooling and project-based and interest-based learning, that kind of stuff. And I make those choices because I want my kids to be, one, emotionally sound, and two, I want them to know themselves and to have that personal stuff developed. All the academic stuff can be worked out. That's an afterthought to like the real development of human work. It's interesting too, because on the first day, my youngest daughter was feeling nervous, and there was 2 kids that came over at separate times, and they were so sweet and so empathetic, and I was so in awe of them. They're from different families. They didn't even see each other do this, but they both came up and they touched Beth on the shoulder and held her hand. They looked her in the eyes. They even dipped down a little bit, even though they didn't need to, just to make sure they were looking into Beth's eyes, and said, oh, I get it. I was feeling really sad too when I got dropped off, and I felt worried, and that's how you're probably feeling right now, and I just want you to know that I understand, and it'll be okay. I promise I'll be right here with you, and you can hold my hand in class if you want to. And it was Like, I was standing there just in awe of these beautiful children. And that's the beauty, like, of this work, is that I know those kids are like that because their parents are like that. Their parents have been parenting the same way. They're connected with their kids. They're empathizing with their kids when they're having hard problems. And so what do kids do? They're incredibly fucking empathetic with other kids when they see other kids having problems. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that so powerful? And after witnessing those other kids doing that for my kid, I said to my husband, like, this is the reason we do this. Even though it can feel like a lot of work sometimes, these kids are going to have skills that most adults don't have. Most adults don't know how to behave and communicate in really empathetic ways. And we're helping raise kids who are doing that. And luckily they're also in a school that's got some other kids who are experiencing that at home. And that is a fucking awesome thing to witness. So those are some of my parenting thoughts and shenanigans. I do want to recognize parenting is fucking hard work, and I know that you adore your kids. I know that you are doing your absolute best by them, and that there is no other parent in the world who could be as good a parent to your kids as you are. And I just wanted to offer up these perspectives and advice because I feel really grateful for the parents and the teachers of this work, because it really helped me feel more connected with my kids, and also just helps them build, a better brain going forward. So I love you all. I want to send you big hugs and blessings, and I want you to say, I want you to know you've got this, Mama. I love you, and I'm sending so much love to you and to your beautiful family.